Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the one man that knows more about politics than anybody I know is Mr. Ray Hanania, reporter, columnist, political analysis expert.
And I am Ray Hanania. I'm really proud to be on with Bill Lipinski. He's a former congressman. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. We'll be right back right after these messages.
Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the one man that knows more about politics than anybody I know is Mr. Ray Hanania, reporter, columnist, political analysis expert.
And I am Ray Hanania. I'm really proud to be on with Bill Lipinski. He's a former congressman for, geez, it was like 22 years, right, Bill? Was
That
it?
is correct, 22 years.
And because, this is the first time, by the way, it's June 12th, 2025, season 4, episode 13, Two Guys on Politics. We're now broadcasting on radio in Detroit on WNZK AM 690 radio. I'll get the schedule from the producers. It'll be 4 or 5 times a week they're going to play the podcast. So people will be able to hear it at different times. But listeners, you can always go to twoguysonpolitics.com, and that takes you to our YouTube channel where all our episodes are broadcast. So you can always reach out to Bill and myself. But Bill, let's introduce you a little bit to the people in Michigan. You were a Democratic committeeman in Chicago, then an alderman, and then elected congressman. And when was that? 82?
I was
80?
elected Congress in 1982. I had been elected to the Chicago City Council in 1975. I had become the Democratic committeeman, the political leader of the 23rd Ward in January of 1975, shortly before I became alderman.
Yeah, and for people in Detroit who don't understand Chicago wards, Chicago has basically about 3 million people. They're divided into 50 wards, which is 60,000 people each ward, essentially. And so you get 60,000 people in the 23rd ward. And your ward was probably among the top three out of the 50 wards in terms of voter turnout. You get a lot of people that would come out and vote in those elections in Chicago.
That is correct.
Yeah, I think sometimes you get like 24, 25,000 votes, which was huge.
Yeah, when Ronald Reagan ran the second time around, he had 23,000 votes, and Walter Mondale had 4,000.
So the 23rd ward, Democratic ward,
Right.
still delivered votes for whoever best represented the community. So anyway, Bill and I are both back. We took about a couple months off from our podcast, which is weekly. We tape it on Thursdays in Chicago. And like I said, we're really excited to be on WNZK AM 690 radio. When you go to twoguysonpolitics.com, I'll have an email there. If you guys want to ask any questions for future shows, you email us and we'll make sure to point them out. I'll share them with Bill so we can talk about them. So we got a bunch of things we're going to talk about today. We got the Elon Musk and Trump feud. We got, is it a protest or a riot in Los Angeles? And we'll talk about Trump's intervention. We have the Trump parade, which is Saturday, June 14th. If you're hearing it before then, obviously, or you may be hearing the show and rebroadcast afterwards, celebrating the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. We have Trump ordering a ban on 12 African and Middle East nations, and then we're going to end it on an update about the war in Ukraine. So, Bill, this Elon Musk and Trump feud, when you heard what happened, now obviously it seems like it's kind of tempered a little bit, like a detente, between this commies and the Americans. I'm not sure which side is the commie, but what did you make of Elon Musk and Trump fighting with each other? What did you think when you
Well,
first
I'm
heard that?
I'm surprised that it took so long. Both of these individuals have super egos, and I didn't believe that they could possibly coexist for very long. And as it turns out, it lasted longer than I thought.
Yeah.
Uh, but it has, I think, ended now. They may get back together just to show the world that they could get back together, but it will never be what it once was, nor do I believe they'll ever really be sincere in trying to work together once again. Uh, I don't know. We'll have to see in the long run if there was anything worthwhile really done by Musk when he was, in that position in the government.
Yeah, now to me, this happens all the time with Trump. They're your worst enemy, and then the next day they're your best friend. I think it's a reflection on Trump's personality, which we can explore a little bit. But I did a little digging. J.D. Vance once called President Trump America's Hitler. Marco Rubio called Trump a con artist. Tulsi Gabbard called him a Middle East bitch. Even Robert F. Kennedy said Trump is bad for the country. These are before Trump got reelected. Elise Stefanik, he said he is insulting to women. Vivek Ramaswamy, he said that Trump is a sore loser, endangered to democracy. Christy Nome, who we see on TV now all the time doing those ads about telling the illegals, hey, you got a chance, turn yourself in, you might be able to come back in. She said that Trump was un-American. So it's not unusual for people who attacked him to end up being in powerful positions. How do you explain that with Trump, that he embraced all those people that I just read? You call somebody a modern day Hitler, and then you run him for vice president.
Well, I think that Trump just, he cannot stand people not loving him. So he'll do anything he has to do to get people to love him. I think that's one of the worst aspects of his personality. There's a lot of bad aspects for his personality, but I think that's one of the worst. Even Putin, he's trying to get Putin to love him so
Right.
that they could do something about that war between Ukraine and Russia, but that hasn't worked out. And I don't know how many of his relationships have worked out, but he wants everybody to love him.
Yeah, and I try to tell the Arab community who are constantly at war with Trump that it's a mistake to take anything he says on face value. He says stuff because he's still a reality TV actor in the White House, and he says stuff like you say because it's his ego. He wants people to come and kiss his feet or his hand like he's the Pope. But if you understand that, instead of reacting to him when he says, "Hey, you dummy," I would laugh at, blow it up, and say, "Look, Mr. Trump, this is what I'd like," and you stay focused on what you need, you might be able to get something from him. But if you react to him the way Trump, says stuff, all you're doing is feeding into Trump's style, don't you think, Bill? So when I talk to Arabs, I tell them, don't react to him. If you have something you want from Trump, push ahead and get it from him, and ignore the insults, because he throws insults like uh, who was that rich guy during the Depression who used to give everybody a dime? He used to give everybody a 10-cent dime. That
Rockefeller.
Rockefeller used to go around and he'd give away money. That's what Trump wants to do, because you said it. He wants people to love him.
Absolutely.
And he attacks you because he finds it, I think, to be a game. I'm not quite sure what kind of good game that is, but so Elon Musk said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I took it a little too far," after Trump threatened to cancel a lot of his contracts, right?
Oh, you think that had anything to do with it?
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. But Elon, he's like the richest man in the world, isn't he?
That's what I
180
understand.
billion or 300 billion. I've read both his bios. So he understands too that maybe I just put up with a crazy president because it impacts my bottom line.
Talking about him, how many times has he been married?
I think at least three that I know of, maybe four.
Uh,
It's been a
That's what I
number.
know. It was three
Yeah,
times.
it was
Yes.
a number of times, and his bios are
And
interesting.
the woman that he has children with at the present time, they're not married.
Yeah, they may not be. I
He's
think
still testing it out.
yeah. Well, sometimes if you've had three failed marriages, the fourth one probably is better to hold off until time comes.
Yeah, that's probably
So,
good advice.
so the book isn't closed on Elon Musk and Trump. They could become the best friend. Who knows? They may marry each other. They love each other. The next thing you know, they hate each other. They'll love each other. So let's switch over to, we got this
Oh, wait,
big,
just before we leave
go
that
ahead.
subject, I want to say I think it's extremely unfortunate
Hmm.
that they call each other the names that they do,
Yeah.
because I think it hurts the standing, the prestige of the United States of America worldwide. I
Yeah.
don't really care what either one of them call each other if
Right.
it did not harm America. And I believe it does harm America. And that's what concerns me about both of them and what they have to say.
Yeah, I agree. It's the image of the U.S. that's probably hurt more than anything. These guys can make up, but nobody will forget the terrible things that were said. Just like I was able to list all the terrible things that his cabinet members have said about him before he brought them back into the administration. So now let's turn to Los Angeles. And, there are a bunch of protesters there. And again, I don't know. Is it, in your view, is it a protest or a riot or it seems like a small part, very small, like about a 4 block area in Los Angeles where there's a problem. Do you think it justified the National Guard and the U.S. Marines being sent there by the president?
Well, I guess you've been listening to a lot of left-wing programs, because one of their standard things they have to say is it's only a 3 or 4 block area.
Right,
It's really not, much of Los Angeles whatsoever. Now, if it was reversed, you know, then they would say, oh my God, 4 blocks of a major city being, torn up like that, being in chaos like that. It's disgusting to me how both of these parties, whether they're in or out, whatever is advantageous for them to say, they will say. My opinion is that the protest originally started to be a decent protest. Okay, somehow it got out of control. It turned into a riot. Now, I believe it was necessary to bring in the National Guard. Now, I don't know that Trump really had the power to do so, but he did it. That should be investigated, I think.
right.
'Cause I'm tired of him skirting the law. We are a nation of laws. He should have to uphold those laws just like anybody else. So that's one thing. The bringing in the Marines, I think, is going far, far overboard.
Right.
But the left wing Democrats gave him the opportunity to do this. And what yeah, excuse my dog.
That's all right.
He's sensing some
He
enemy
must
out there.
support me. The dog must support me. That's right. Bella supports me. Go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that I think that the demonstrations turned chaotic because some people came in to get the situation inflamed that way. But it just played into Trump's hands.
Yeah.
He got to criticize the governor. He got to bring in the National Guard. And now he brought in the Marines. He's making the situation look like it's the entire city of Los Angeles burning to the ground
Right.
because the governor and the mayor are doing nothing about it, which is terrible, which is tragic. Once again, those who live in Los Angeles, those who have an objective evaluation of it, see that it is a riot. It has burned cars, it has destroyed property. Some people have been injured, but by the same token, it is in a small, confined area. The response on the part of Trump was totally overboard, but it plays well with his followers. I'm sure his followers think that it's just terrific. He's bringing law and order to that chaotic city of Los Angeles.
Yeah. Now, listen, my approach comes down to crime or no crime. If somebody commits a crime, I don't care who you support or who you oppose. You should be arrested, charged, given your, taken your rights as an accused, prosecuted, go to court, and if you're proven guilty, you serve time. If it turns out that you're not guilty, you let them go. What seems to be happening in this country is we don't care about that whole process anymore. So if it happens that we like the protesters, we defend them like the Democrats. They're a good example of what I think is the hypocrisy in this country. When the pro-Palestinian protesters were on the streets with the Hispanics and the Asians, and they were protesting Israel's war in Gaza, the Democrats were yelling and screaming that these people should be prosecuted, they should be kicked out of school, they should be denied, didn't matter whether they committed a crime. If you stood up and you condemned the U.S., they didn't say anything when Marco Rubio said, we're going to kick you out of the country. Now, because it's politically to their advantage, it has to do with illegal immigrants. And I personally think if you're illegal, you should be arrested. You should be thrown out of the country. You could come back and apply the legal way and be a citizen the way my mom and dad did. And I'm sure your great grandparents, did, Bill. But the Democrats are the ones I think that are saying we have to defend these protesters in Los Angeles. And to me, that's the grave hypocrisy on the Democratic side.
I agree with you totally. I'd like to know why they feel like they have to defend these protesters, other than to simply be on the opposite side from Trump.
Well, they're playing politics, right? They're trying,
Right,
it's not the protesters. They're trying to say that leave the illegal immigrants alone. Those are Democratic voters, even if they vote illegally. We want them. We need their voice. We need their support. Now, not all of them were violent, not all these protesters. There were some, I think, the police chief and Governor Newsom and the mayor of Los Angeles said that I think there were like a couple hundred that were troublemakers out of 5,000 people. So to me, it seemed like both sides were kind of playing politics. But here's the thing about that I think where the Republicans are hypocrites. You get 4,000 people protesting and 400 of them turn to violence. Aren't they violating the law, Bill? Don't you think that in much the same way that the so-called insurrection took place in January when the do you remember that? Oh, after the election?
You mean those great American freedom fighters who were trying to stop the steal?
So
Yes,
Trump defended them. Trump defended them. In fact, he pardoned all of them, didn't he?
Right.
Like I think it was like 1,000 of them he pardoned, who did just as many worse things because more people were killed in that quote unquote insurrection. I don't think it was an insurrection, but a bad protest. But he defended that, and now he's flipping it around, and I think it's all because of politics. And I think the political aspect of this is biased, and that's hypocritical. And both sides are using politics to allow things to go wrong and to denounce things that aren't wrong.
Absolutely. Further dividing this country.
Yes.
I don't really know how long we can survive with the image that we are presenting to the rest of the world. And secondly, and more importantly, how much we are dividing ourselves from one individual to another individual in this country. It's disgusting to me that we do not have any real statesmen any longer who will step forward in the Republican Party and criticize Trump, or anyone in the Democratic Party will step forward and criticize someone like AOC.
Right.
Who, now if the Democrats nominate her for the presidency, it will be the end of the Democratic Party in this country. They might as well just fold up their tent and go to some socialistic country, because she is a socialist. We don't want her to be president of the United States.
I think the Democratic Party is already in complete turmoil, and I don't see anybody I don't think Newsom is strong enough. There are a number of people that I don't like to lead the Democratic Party. I don't think they're strong enough. But the real question I want to ask you, Bill, is Do you feel that Trump wanted this as an excuse to expand his powers? Because that's one of the big fears people have. His critics think he's a tyrant trying to expand his powers.
Well, I don't know about wanting to be a dictator. Uh, a lot of people say that. I think he's got the ego, but I think he's got enough sense to realize that's not going to happen in this country. We have a Congress of the United States. Both of them could, either house could really step up and stop many of these things that he's doing from happening. And I think if he tries to go too far, one of them will finally step up and say enough is enough and halt it. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you might get some Republicans move to impeach him if he goes too far out on a limb. By
Yeah,
the same token, let me say there are many things that he has done that I totally and completely agree with him on.
right.
And I wish he had a better personality so more people would agree with him and what he has done would be more accepted, because I think that's very good for this country.
Yeah, I listen, I like the crackdown on crime. I think that's really important. I don't like his economic strategy of making tariff threats, huge tariff threats. You know, the cost of eggs have gone up, doubled in price, and then they went down a few pennies. But when you look at the price of eggs, they're still 45% higher today than they were when he started this whole tariff threat issue. So, you know, he can't say that prices have gone down. So the economy thing really worries me with him because that's what hits me directly. Crime does impact us, but not everybody is, fortunately, isn't the victim of crime, but we're all the victim of bad, economy. But I think that he really does believe that he could be president for life. And I think that's why he admires, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, Putin and the Russians. I think he's jealous of what Putin has. Putin serves 12 years and then he decides to give himself another 12 years and he's a dictator for life. I think that's Trump wants to be a dictator for life. I really think he believes he knows what's best for America, and I don't think he's right. He has some good policies, like you said.
Well, I don't care if he thinks he knows what's best for America. And if he did know what's best for America, 2 terms, that's it. I don't want to see that being changed. I don't want to see this country, the country that was founded on life, liberty, and justice for all, turn into a dictatorship. I don't know what would happen to the world if the dictator in America gets along with the dictator in Russia, the dictator in China. You know, what happens to the rest of the world, let alone what happens in our country.
Doesn't it bother you, though, when you see him so cozy with the two people who want to destroy us, the Xing Zai or whatever his name is in China, and Putin in the new Soviet Union? He is trying to rebuild that Soviet Union. I was just in, I told you I did a trip to the North Atlantic, and we were in some of those countries: Poland, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. Those people hate the Russians, not the
Absolutely.
Russian people, but they constantly during the tours talk about how the threat of Russian hegemony hangs over them in a threatening shadow. In Poland, that so many people said they were worried about what Putin was going to do, and was America too soft or not strong enough to stand up to him? Are we strong enough to stand up to him, or is
Well, I think we're
Trump
strong
making a
enough.
mistake?
The question is, will Putin want to stand up to him, or will he want to side with them?
You mean
I'm
Trump
sorry,
would?
Trump,
Yeah,
yes.
would Trump stand up to him? I don't think he wants to. I think he thinks it's a game, and he treats Putin the same way he treats Gavin Newsom. You know, he just calls him names and then he talks to him. And, Elon Musk, he's mad at him one day and he calms down. And then I think the other day he said, "Oh, I understand. He didn't mean a lot of that stuff." So I don't know. This emotional seesaw really concerns me. So,
Oh, I agree with you on that, Ray. But the people in America had a chance not to vote him into office, and they turned around and did it once again. But by the same token, the Democrats have no one to blame but themselves. They put forth an extremely poor candidate, and a candidate who was a very poor campaigner. So the Democrats have no one to blame but themselves. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the American people had a Hobson's choice. One was worse than the other.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, more people picked Trump. But I would be just as unhappy if we had what's her name now as
Kamala.
president.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps even more unhappy about that.
Yeah, I did not think Kamala Harris was a good candidate. I mean, I've already said this publicly. I voted for Dr. Jill Stein as a protest to both. The choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump was just horrible, in my opinion. All right, we're going to take a quick break here at Two Guys on Politics, which is broadcasting on WNZK AM 690 radio and is on our YouTube channel, Two Guys on Politics. I'm Ray Hanania here with former Congressman Bill Lipinski. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion talking about the Trump parade, the ban on the 12 African and Middle East nations, and an update on Ukraine and a couple other issues I think we'll talk about. We'll be right back right after these messages. And welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys on Politics. Here at WNZK AM 690 radio. We're grateful to the radio station in Detroit, Michigan for broadcasting our podcast. We do a new one every week on Thursday. Today's show was taped on June 12th, 2025. This is season 4, episode 13. And of course, I'm with my esteemed co-host, a former congressman from Illinois' Southwest Side District, 5th District and 3rd District, former Congressman Bill Lipinski, longtime political official in the city of Chicago for a number of years, and also serving in Congress, I think 22 years. Bill, we were talking about Elon Musk and the Trump feud and the protests and riots in Los Angeles, and we kind of touched on Trump and what his psyche is in terms of, is he trying to be a dictator? And in my view, I put together a post that showed, you remember Stalin from 1945 on that wall over the Red Square with his commie Soviet colleagues. And I replaced Stalin's face with Trump's face, because this parade that he's doing on Saturday, June 14th, I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I think it's great to celebrate the 250-year anniversary of the U.S. Army. On the other hand, I hate the way he's turning it into like this Soviet-style display of tanks and missiles and armaments and soldiers. And it happens to be on his birthday, which I think is a coincidence. But it bothers me. It feeds into this idea that he really wants to be a tyrant like Putin. He does not want to step down from office. And it worries me. Does it worry you, or do you think it's just being turned into a
No,
big...
it worries me, because I think he might want to do exactly what you said. I have enough confidence, though, in the House and the Senate to stop him from doing that. Now, I know that Republicans have been very docile, unfortunately, but I hope and pray that they would wake up enough to stop him from trying to be a dictator. It would be horrendous if that happened. Here are the United States of America, the country that has always stood for democracy, for justice, for the rule of law, to wind up having one of our presidents turn into a dictator. I mean, it would not only be so bad for us, it'd be so terrible for the rest of the world. Because if that happens, then I could see him getting together with Putin, getting together with the Chinese Communist Party, and the three of them decide they're going to rule the world. And I don't think anybody, there's not an entity in the rest of the world that could stand up to that trio, no question about it. So I hope and pray it does not happen. I think we have enough people in the House and the Senate that would stop it from happening. But we have to monitor the situation. And I hate to be an alarmist. I dislike these Democrats who say that all the time about him becoming a dictator, but I can understand their fears.
Well, I agree with you. I think on the one hand, the Democrats exaggerate stuff. In other words, everything he does is bad in their eyes. So I can't trust them to be honest. The news media, I think the majority is pro-Democrat left, and then I think a small group is pro-right. We're not getting, good perspective news. We're getting spin. What I call perspective news. We're not getting objective news. We're getting perspective news, which means that they're not reporting the news. They're reporting their opinionated news. And this whole idea of the parade uh, seems to kind of fit into the stereotype that people fear that he's a Soviet tyrant like Stalin
Well,
or wannabe.
when was the last time United States of America had a parade such as that?
Well, I mean, that's a good point. Listen, every 4th of July, there are parades all over this country. Did we do a national one? Maybe in Washington, but not to the extent that they're doing it to this
I
one.
don't, I don't believe we've ever had an extensive parade in Washington, D.C., other than at the end of the First World War and the end of the Second World War. Other than that, we've never had a parade that really was a military style parade,
Right.
such as he's planning, for this year in Washington, D.C.
Well, do you think we have to have, for example, let's pretend like Trump wasn't the president. If Bill Clinton wanted to do a military style parade, would that be okay, you think, with all the tanks and the missiles and the planes flying over?
Well, I still would not like it.
Yeah.
I don't think we need something like that. We've never had something like that. We know how powerful militarily we are. We
Yeah.
don't have to show anybody. The world knows how powerful we are. And all we're doing is saying to the rest of the world, you better be careful. You better make sure you stay on our side, or we're going to blow you off the face of the earth. I don't like that attitude. I don't want to see that attitude. And I don't want to see military parades be in the forefront of any kind of pictures that are sent out around the world of American culture, American society.
Yeah, it's ironic, though. We can change a little bit, switch over to this ban, this executive order, it's put a ban on individuals or visitors from 12 African and Middle East nations. I can read those off in a minute, but um, his approach to the Middle East in the beginning, because you remember when Biden was the president, the Gaza war had been going on for over a year, I think, and 40,000 Palestinians were killed during maybe 45,000. Since Trump has taken over, it's continued. He remember how Trump said, "Oh, I'll stop the war. I'll stop Ukraine. I'll stop Gaza. We'll bring peace. I'll
On
do
the
it in
first
one
day,
day." Yeah, and the first day I think was his big.
of
And
course,
now
now he
he
says,
ba-
well, everybody knew that was an exaggeration.
Yeah, but
Well,
people still voted for the exaggeration, I guess,
absolutely.
because the other side was horrible. The option to vote for Kamala Harris was just even worse. But all of the Arabs that supported him, the majority, have now abandoned him. The Democrats say, "Oh, are you happy now that you have Trump?" And when I talked to a Democrat, I said, "You know what? I was never happy with Biden." And I'm not less happy with Trump. They're both the same, in my opinion, when it comes to the
Well,
Middle East.
well, the Arab support that he had during the course of the election, why has that support abandoned him now that he is president?
Well, he has not done anything to stop the war in Gaza. I mean, listen, I'm not defending Hamas. They're a terror, in my opinion, they're a terrorist organization, and they've weakened the Palestinian cause. But the Israeli government, in my opinion, is the most extreme government they've ever had. Even former Israeli prime ministers are speaking out against Benjamin Netanyahu, who always was opposed to the peace process. He just wants to take the land. And you know me, Bill, I'm not Muslim, I'm a Christian. And
Right.
I don't understand how Christians in this country continue to support a guy like Benjamin Netanyahu when he's destroying the Christian community in Bethlehem. and in those Christian towns around Bethlehem. So they quickly realized that he wasn't going to do anything.
Well, and that's very unfortunate because the Arabs in this country do need a champion. They unfortunately are one of the most inept group of people
Yep.
supporting their own causes that we've ever had in this country. I had a significant population of Arab Americans in my congressional district, and they would complain to me that the lack of cooperation, the lack of help, the lack of support that they got from the government, and how much the government helped the Israelis and the Jewish people. And I would say that's because they got together, they lobbied, they were very articulate. You people, all you do is moan and complain. You
Yes.
don't really do anything to
Right.
improve your status in this country.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you. I have told the Arab community, and I've written this in many columns, that emotion is not a strategy. Emotion is a curse and a weakness. You get them. The only time the Arabs get upset is when they're emotional and they go out and they protest and they scream and they point to the terrible things happening in Gaza, but they don't do anything significant. They think that they want to rhetorically fight the war in Gaza against Israel, and that's not a way to win. They
No, it
need
certainly
to
isn't.
work here in this country, get involved with this country, help Americans understand what the truth is, and they don't communicate very well. They don't understand the media, they don't understand press releases. All they do is they understand how to get angry and how to yell. And you're right. Your district had the largest Palestinian concentration for years, and they were more divided as a community than uh, and made them weak. So they couldn't articulate. I bet the hardest problem you had was who do you talk to in the
Oh,
Arab
no
community to
question about
represent
it.
the community?
Absolutely no question about it.
Y-
Yes.
Well, we know that the Democrats are not stupid either. They saw that third district that your son Dan Lipinski represented, that Marie Newman later represented, had this strong Arab population. And once Dan was out, he was very conservative. And Marie was in there. She was very liberal. They divided that district into five different congressional districts, erased it, and today that Arab voice that was there is completely dissipated. And the worst part, Bill, the Arabs didn't even know that district was being torn apart into five different pieces. They didn't understand the process. They were focused on Gaza. They weren't focused on their backyard.
This is a very harsh thing to say, but I have said this directly to Arab people, Muslim people when I was in Congress. You have to become more Americanized. You
Yeah.
have to stop living amongst yourself. You have to stop talking to yourselves. You have to become more Americanized. That's the only way you're going to get your views really taken seriously and perhaps implemented by the American government.
Yeah, but trying to, and they get mad at me when I say the exact same thing. I think you're absolutely right. You want to change American foreign policy? You don't change it from the top, you change it from the bottom. You elect mayors, you elect representatives, you elect Congress members who support you. You create PACs, political organizations. You get the vote out. Now, they're doing that in some areas, like in Orland Park, and they've done it in Dearborn and Detroit, the greater Detroit region. But those are two small areas of fifty states in this country. It's
Yes,
not enough. So we don't have a national movement. We have the Muslim community working with themselves, the secular Arab community working with themselves. We got Jordanians working with themselves, Palestinians working with themselves, the Chaldeans who are not Arab. It's a mix. It's like having 25 European countries thinking that they're all going to use the euro and be happy with it. And when I was in Lithuania and Poland and Estonia, none of them seemed happy with the euro or that they were part of the European Union. So it was, I got to be honest with you. We have a hurdle, and there's nobody in the Arab American community that wants to take that challenge on because they're afraid. They're afraid because the extremists have us in a chokehold, and we're losing, in my opinion, as much because of Netanyahu, but as much as because of the extremists in our own community. It's just horrible. But let me read these 12 countries. Let's talk about this for a minute about Trump wants to ban people, immigrants from these countries: Afghanistan, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Myanmar, the Republic of Congo, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Now, some of these are Middle Eastern, some of these are African. They're not all Muslim countries, but I know that the activists are trying to rally people by saying this is another Muslim ban, but it's not a Muslim ban. It's a ban on countries with bad immigration controls at their borders. They can't tell who's a good person or a bad person coming into America, right? We have to do
Very
something.
true.
Yeah, I mean, I support this ban in the sense of getting it right and making it better. But do you think that this is, I mean, this plays into the immigration problem we have in this country too, doesn't it? That
Yeah, it very definitely does. There's no question about it.
yeah, we don't control the number of immigrants who come into this country. So there were problems like we have like I think 30,000 people from Haiti that are whose visas have expired that are in this country. I, that there's something wrong with that, right? And I don't mean to single out Haiti, but they have the largest number of visa violations of all these countries. And they're, so we got to get control of it somehow. And I
Well,
don't believe,
I think it is almost treasonous what the Biden administration did in allowing so many illegal aliens to come into this country. Now, I realize everybody would like to live here, but not everybody have been fortunate enough to be born here or
right.
have been fortunate enough to be able to get into this country legally. But we have to keep our borders safe. We have to keep our borders so we know who's coming in, how many are coming in, and is it beneficial to our country? And what Biden did, I thought, as I say, I think it bordered on being treasonous.
Yeah, I agree. I think any country that has a bad border and bad immigration process to send people here or check people, they're not doing a good job of checking people. I don't want those people to come here if they're not properly vetted. And it shouldn't be on our burden to just do it ourselves. If, for example, like if Libya wants people to immigrate to this country, they should do a better job of telling us who these people are and give us the background on them. And that's not being done. They're
No, it's
just
not.
coming here and they're applying for they're not even applying for visas. They're just coming into the country, the Republic of Congo. We don't know who these people are. They have the worst border problems, and they need to be corrected. And I think that is an issue. All right, we have one last topic, which of course is the. It's been almost 4 years, hasn't it? Well, it'll be 4 years this February, right? Or
I'm
when?
still flying my Ukrainian flag out in front of my house.
Yeah, it's been going on so long, we've kind of lost sight of it a little bit, haven't we?
I
This
think we
war,
have lost sight of it, yes. And I think that a lot of people in this country still deceive themselves to think that the Ukraine can win. There's no way Ukraine is ever going to win this war.
yeah,
The longer it goes on, the more they're going to suffer, the more people they are going to lose. I just wish someone could sit down with the head of Ukraine and convince him to cut a deal. They're going to lose some land, but most of that land in the east is really Russian in the first place because I say those people speak Russian. Most of them feel like they are Russian. So they're going to have to give up some land. but we've got to end this war. We've got to end it as soon as possible. The only way the Ukrainians could ever win would be if we committed ground troops ourselves.
Right.
And I don't think there's anybody in America that is really for that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Ukraine has had some problems in the past.
Yes.
They're not the best country in the world. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean that the Russians had any right, to invade them a second time. They did
Oh,
it, I guess,
absolutely.
in 2014 and took over the Crimea. They did it, what was it, February 24, 2022, I think. So that's been 3.5 years now, I think, almost 3.5 years coming up, 4 years this February. This is the longest and deadliest war that Europe's seen since World War II. It's
Yes, it
not good
is.
for anybody, is it?
No, it certainly is not.
But I mean, when we get down to it, Ukraine didn't start the war.
No, they
Putin
did not.
started the war. They invaded. They violated international law. It
Well,
doesn't seem like
Ray, let me just
international law
interrupt you
means
for a
anything.
minute, though.
Go
One
ahead.
thing you do have to keep in mind is that there was an American president, and it escapes me right now, saying to Putin that NATO would never take in countries right up to the Russian border.
Right.
Russia didn't have to worry about it. Well, that wasn't true.
Well,
Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania,
aren't those recent
Finland.
though? Aren't they recent because of this Ukrainian war?
No, they're not. No, I mean Poland's been in
NATO.
NATO for a number of years. The same way with all the other ones. No, there's nothing new. Well, maybe Finland is new, but
Right.
that's about the only one, and that's one of the more insignificant ones.
So NATO, in other words, by
We sort of
allowing
now. I think that we gave Putin an excuse, okay, for doing this. I think he was looking for a way to do it because he wanted to get back some more territory. In fact, he'd
right.
like to get back all of Ukraine into Russia. Uh, but, something has to be done to end this war. And I don't see, there's no way short of putting American troops on the ground
Right.
to get rid of the Russians out of the Ukraine. So you got to cut a deal. And the deal, I think, is going to hurt Ukraine. But unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens in the world.
Well, what does being the leader of the free world mean if we're not ready to stand up against tyranny? I mean, we didn't want to fight. I mean, we did hesitate in World War II. We waited. We waited. The
Yes,
whole
we
world
did.
was in war except for us and a couple other countries until the Japanese attacked us on December 7th, 1941. And of course, my dad, my uncle, that week they signed up. My dad went into the army. My uncle went into the Navy. He fought on a battleship in the North Atlantic for 4 years, and my dad served in the Europe with the OSS in the Fifth Army for 4 years. We had to fight though, right? Because that was a direct attack against us. Do you not think that Putin is really attacking us indirectly by going after Ukraine and NATO countries?
Well, I don't know that that's hard to say. I don't know that he wants a confrontation with us. I think he feels that he can really get Trump just to step on the side and not try to stop him from doing the things that he wants to do. Uh, and I think he might be right. I don't know. Trump is such a significant problem for us in
Yeah,
this country. And I don't really know what the answer is. I wish I did.
yeah. Now, Biden wasn't as strong either. Biden
Oh,
had
no,
problems. This
absolutely
war
not.
started when Biden was the president. And you have to wonder, did Putin look at Biden and say, oh, the United States is the weakest it's ever been. They're not going to do a damn thing if I invade Ukraine. And he went right in there, invaded Ukraine. And all we did was we gave them a lot of money, but we withheld our biggest weapons until only recently, I think. And if it were me, if you were president, what would you do to end this war, Bill? Seriously, what do you think you would do?
What do I think? How we end the war?
Yeah, if you were president, what would you do?
Oh, well, I would tell the Ukrainians, you're going to lose so much land on the eastern part of your country, land that is primarily occupied by people who speak Russian, who think that they are Russian. You're going to lose that. but I'm going to give you a guarantee that if you sign on to the peace treaty, losing that the United States of America, whether you belong to NATO or not, will stand behind you in the future, and you will not lose any land to Russia. That's what I would do. That's how I would handle the situation.
So we would make a commitment that if in a peace process like that, where you surrender some of this land, where the people are speaking Russian, that if the Russians go further than that, we would commit ground troops. Then
Absolutely.
we would defend them. Okay, I personally would agree with that too, but I hate the idea that Putin has managed to survive these 3.5 years. Bill, we're at the end of our time here on WNZK AM 690 radio. For our listeners, this is Two Guys on Politics, broadcast on WNZK AM 690 radio in Detroit, Michigan. Go to our website at twoguysonpolitics.com on the YouTube channel. You'll get our emails there. You can send us your thoughts and questions for future shows. We look forward to talking to you about all the issues. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye, everybody.